In the charming little town of Pineville, there lived a lively boy named Max and his dad, Mr. Thompson. Max was a bright and curious 8-year-old, always eager to learn new things, especially English. He loved sharing funny stories with his friends at school, and his dad was his best friend and teacher, making learning a joyous adventure. One sunny Saturday afternoon, as the birds chirped and the breeze gently rustled the leaves, Max and Mr. Thompson were sitting in their cozy living room. Max had a sparkle in his eyes and a mischievous grin on his face. "Dad," Max began, "let's make learning English fun today. How about we create a story about farts?" He burst into giggles, knowing that this idea would bring a lot of laughter. Mr. Thompson chuckled and nodded. "All right, Max. That sounds like a fun idea. Let's set our imaginations free and create a hilarious story about farts. But remember, we need to use some new English words in our story." Max's excitement grew. "Okay, Dad, let's start." They both grabbed a notebook and a pen, ready to brainstorm their whimsical tale. Mr. Thompson started. "Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was a magical forest called Fartwood. In Fartwood, every time someone laughed, a fart would be set free." Max burst into laughter. "That's so funny, Dad. Let me add to it. There was a brave knight named Sir Toot-a-lot. Sir Toot-a-lot had a special power. He could control the loudness and smell of his farts. He used his power to protect the village from enemies." Mr. Thompson grinned. "Great start, Max. Now, let's add some new words. How about gigantic and aroma?" Max nodded enthusiastically. "Sure, Dad." Sir Toot-a-lot had a gigantic fart attack that scared away the dragons. His farts had a sweet aroma that made the villagers happy instead of smelly. Mr. Thompson clapped his hands. "Excellent use of new words, Max. Now, let's continue. One day, the evil sorcerer, Stinky Pete, cast a spell on the forest, making all the farts smell terrible. The villagers were very upset. Max jumped in, but Sir Toot-a-lot had a plan. He gathered all the children in the village and taught them how to set farts free without making a mess. They all laughed together, and the sweet aroma returned, breaking Stinky Pete's spell. They both laughed heartily at their story. Mr. Thompson hugged Max and said, "You did an amazing job, Max. Not only did we create a funny story, but you also learned new words and practiced your English." Max beamed with pride. "Thanks, Dad. Learning English with you is the best. Can we write another story tomorrow?" "Of course, Max," Mr. Thompson replied. "Tomorrow, we'll come up with an even funnier story. But for now, let's read our story again and enjoy our masterpiece." As they read their story aloud, their laughter filled the house, making it even cozier. The tale of Sir Toot-a-lot became their favorite bedtime story, and they often added new adventures and characters to it. One rainy afternoon, Max had another idea. "Dad, what if we make a game out of it? We can use our story to learn more English words." Mr. Thompson's eyes lit up. "That's a fantastic idea, Max. We can make a board game. Let's call it Fartwood Adventures." We can create cards with new words and phrases, and every time we use them correctly, we move forward on the board. They spent the next few hours drawing a colorful game board with pathways through the magical forest of Fartwood, complete with enchanted castles, mischievous dragons, and, of course, fart clouds. They made cards with words like gigantic, aroma, mischievous, and enchanted, each card having a sentence to complete or a question to answer. Max and Mr. Thompson played their new game every evening. They laughed at the funny sentences they created and celebrated when they learned new words. Max's English improved quickly, and he began using his new vocabulary in his school stories and conversations with friends. One day, Max's teacher, Ms. Bennett, noticed his improved vocabulary and creativity. During a parent-teacher meeting, she mentioned it to Mr. Thompson. Max has shown remarkable improvement in his English skills, Ms. Bennett said. His stories are imaginative, and he's using advanced vocabulary words. How did you manage this at home? Mr. Thompson smiled proudly. We turned learning into a fun activity. We created stories and even a game called Fartwood Adventures to make learning new words exciting. Ms. Bennett was impressed. That's wonderful. It's a great example of how learning can be both educational and enjoyable. Keep up the fantastic work, Max. Max beamed with pride, and his friends were curious about his secret to learning English so well. He invited them over to play Fartwood Adventures, and soon, they were all laughing and learning together. The game became a hit in Pineville, and parents started asking Mr. Thompson for tips on making learning fun at home. Inspired by the success of their game, Mr. Thompson and Max decided to write a book about their adventures in Fartwood. They included stories, games, and tips for parents on how to make learning English enjoyable for their children. The book, titled Fartwood Adventures, Learning English with Laughter, became popular in their community. Max and Mr. Thompson often held reading sessions at the local library, where they shared their stories and played the game with other children. The sessions were filled with laughter and learning, bringing the community closer together. One day, while walking through the park, Max turned to his dad and said, "Dad, I'm so glad we created Fartwood. Learning English has never been this much fun. Thank you for making every day an adventure." Mr. Thompson smiled and hugged Max. "I'm proud of you, Max. You've shown that learning can be fun and that with creativity, anything is possible. Let's continue our adventures and keep setting farts free in Fartwood." And so, in the little town of Pineville, Max and his dad continued to learn and laugh together, turning every day into a magical adventure filled with new words, funny stories, and the joy of learning English.